Test 1, 2, test. Good. I've held Tesla stock since 2012. So for the last 10 years, I started purchasing Tesla stock back in 2012. And the big thing that drew me to the company was the mission of Tesla. I've been holding Tesla since 2012, the last 10 years. And the biggest thing that drew me to Tesla, let me move this and this and this. I've been holding Tesla since 2012. I've been holding Tesla stock since 2012. And the thing that brought me to Tesla in the first place was Elon. I've been holding Tesla stock since late 2012, and one of the big things that drew me to the company was the car, the mission of the company, and Elon most of all. Elon as a leader. I've been holding Tesla stock since 2012, and the biggest things that drew me to the company were the product, the car, the company's mission, and Elon's vision for the company, his long-term vision for what Tesla could become and why Tesla is important. And for the last 10 years, there was nothing that would convince me to sell the stock at any point. There was nothing happening within the company or anything that I was working on. And for the last 10 years, my conviction for the company was at an all-time. And for the last 10 years, my conviction in the company has been unbroken. It's been 100%. I worked at the company, I invested in it. And for the last 10 years, my conviction was so damn high that I ended up working for the damn company because I wanted to be there so badly. And I had the pleasure to do it for 4 years. And now that I've had a little bit more time, and now since I became financially independent, I've had more time to sit down and think about the things. And now that I've become financially independent, I have more time. And now that I've become financially independent, and I can actually sit down and think about, okay, what are the true things that will cause me to sell Tesla stock? I've only been able to come up with one specific example, only one. And there's a potential that that one thing could happen this year. And there's a potential that and there's a potential that that and there is a potential that one thing and there is a potential that the one specific thing I'm looking for could happen in 2012. And that is the CEO compensation plan that Elon has at Tesla today. For those that aren't familiar, for those that aren't familiar, the board of Tesla and Tesla put together a compensation plan where Elon gets paid. For those that aren't familiar, back in 2018, Tesla and the board put together a compensation plan for Elon that would essentially, for those that aren't familiar, back in 2018, Tesla and the board put together a compensation plan for Elon that would be 100% of his pay. It would include any salary he takes, any stock that he gets paid in, and for those that might not be familiar, back in 2018, Tesla put together a compensation plan for Elon that essentially, for those that aren't familiar, back in 2018, Tesla put together a compensation plan for Elon that was 100% of his pay. And the most attractive thing about it is that And the most attractive thing about that compensation package was its long term. And the best thing about that compensation package was its long term focus. And the best thing about that package is that it and the best thing about that package is that it was 100% based on long-term goals. There were no salaries, no short-term bonuses, nothing of the like. It was designed as a 10-year plan to really it was designed as a 10-year plan to outline it was it was designed under a 10-year plan with long-term goals for the company. And and Elon would only get paid out and Elon would only get paid if he were to hit those and Elon would only get paid if he were to hit those long-term goals. To receive to receive the maximum amount of compensation to receive the maximum amount of to receive the maximum amount of compensation, Elon's to receive the maximum amount of commerce to receive the co- and for Elon to receive the maximum amount of compensation, Tesla's market cap would have to reach at least $650 billion. And a varying set of milestones. Those include and a varying set of milestones divided up into 8 segments. And a varying set of milestones that were divided into 8 segments each. With the revenue goal being up to 175 billion, or with the revenue goal being 175 billion or higher, or a $14 billion EBITDA. And those goals were for revenue, and those goals were and those goals are 100 and those goals are and then and those goals are reaching $175 billion in revenue or $14 billion in EBITDA or EBITDA. And those goals are reaching $175 billion in revenue or $14 billion in EBITDA or EBITDA. If you don't know what EBITDA is or EBITDA, what it essentially, if you're not familiar with the term EBITDA, if you're not familiar with the term EBITDA or EBITDA, it essentially stands for the profitability of the company. How much money is the company making? Now, the very interesting thing is that all those milestones and all those goals that this compensation package has, it's very, very likely that Tesla will hit every single one of those tranches this year. So the market capitalization tranche. So what's very interesting about this compensation plan is that it was drafted. Now the most interesting thing about this compensation plan is that it was drafted no more than 4 years ago with the outlook of it being completed in 10 years. And it just so happens that this year in 2022, it's very likely that Elon and Tesla will achieve every single one of the components of this plan. Which stands to And so if that's the case, what this means, and so if that were to happen, which is very, very, and if so, what, and and so if that were to happen, and so if what, blah, and so if that were to happen, Tesla will have to draft a brand new compensation package for Elon because he doesn't get paid. Otherwise, he wouldn't get paid while he works at Tesla. I know Elon's super, super. I know that Elon is very. I'm sure Elon And even though Elon has said that he doesn't do this stuff for the money, that he doesn't work for the money, he's way too valuable to not be paid. He can do so much more if we. And even though Elon has said that he's not doing any of this for the money, it would be so silly for us. And even though Elon has said he doesn't do this for the money, he doesn't work for the money, it would be so silly for Tesla not to pay him for his time, which is obviously extremely valuable. And Elon having capital and having cash and having shares and value is great for society. So Tesla is obviously going to have to come up with a compensation package for him. Now, in drafting this compensation package, I'm going to be looking Now, that compensation package that's going to be drafted. Now, there's two questions that come to mind here. One is Elon going to continue being the CEO of the company after this compensation package is complete? My gut tells me absolutely. There's still so much ramping that. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is Elon going to. Now, the first thing that comes to mind for me is. Now, there's two things that come to mind when I think about this compensation package being completed this year. One, is Elon going to continue being the CEO? Now, there have been no clues that say that Elon won't continue to be the CEO, and I would be very, very, very surprised if Elon does step down. I think he'll be at the company for much longer than a lot of people realize, only because he. Now, I think Elon's going to be at the company for. I don't think that's changing anytime soon. I think there's still a lot of things Tesla has to get figured out. They're in the middle of a Cybertruck ramp up. Now, the two things that come to mind are. Now, the main thing that comes to mind. Now, there's two things that come up to mind when thinking about this compensation plan for the new one. Now, there's two things that come to mind thinking about the new compensation plan that's going to be released. One, is Elon going to continue being the CEO? And two, what is the compensation package actually going to be? Now, for the first question of Elon continuing to be the CEO, I would be extremely surprised if this is where Elon steps down. There's too many exciting things going on at Tesla, and SpaceX still going through a massive ramp up to get Starship going. I personally don't think Elon will step away from Tesla until SpaceX and Starship is 100%. I don't foresee Elon stepping away from Tesla until SpaceX is at a point where they're doing regular missions to Mars and they're doing a lot of human. Now, I don't foresee Elon stepping away from Tesla anytime soon. They're in the middle of designing Cybertruck and ramping Cybertruck up. They're in the middle of. Now, I don't foresee Elon stepping away from Tesla anytime soon. I don't have any data or information that would tell me this. Just my gut is telling me that there's too much going on at Tesla and not enough going on. No. Now, I would be very surprised if Elon were to leave anytime soon. I have no information and no data that would tell me that, but my gut tells me that there's too much going on at Tesla for him to step away now. The Cybertruck's in the middle of the design phase and the ramp-up phase, Model Y at Berlin and Giga Texas, and all the different products they want to come out with. It just seems like there's too many things for him to focus on. And on the flip side, obviously SpaceX has a lot going on as well, but at least at SpaceX, he has a president that can run the show. No. Now, as far as Elon leaving, I really think that's extremely unlikely. I don't see him leaving anytime soon. There's way too many exciting things going on at the company, and I think Elon wants to be around and wants to lead that charge. That could obviously change at some point in the future, but for the foreseeable future, I don't see that happening. So whatever compensation plan Tesla comes out with, I'm sure will be tailored to Elon. Now, the length of time of that compensation package is also going to be very interesting. Is it going to be another 10-year milestone, or is it going to be another 5-year milestone, or a shorter time milestone period? Now, when it comes to the actual compensation package itself, That is mainly what I'm focusing on. Truly, and I've really spent a lot of time thinking about this. It's like, okay, if Elon were to leave, would I really sell my shares? And that doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to sell my shares. I think the bigger thing is what are the I think the better I think the bigger question is going to be who would step into that role, which again, I don't see anyone else but Elon being in that role. But secondly, how is the compensation package going to be built and designed so that future but secondly, how is the but secondly, how is but more importantly, how is the compensation package going to be designed so that future growth is the priority of the compensation package? And that and that is a trigger for me, and that is the primary trigger that will tell me if and that is the primary trigger I'm looking for. Is regardless of who the CEO is, regardless who the leader is, and that is the trigger that I'm looking for. And that is the trigger that I am personally looking for. Regardless of who the CEO is or who the leader is, if the compensation package is not built for long-term goals, my fear is that and instead it's focused on short-term goals like say yearly goals or quarterly goals or reaching a specific revenue sale and instead it's focused on short-term goals like year over year goals. That to me is a huge red flag. What that tells me is that the company has shifted its focus from its grandiose, really long-term potential of growing to 20 million cars per year and dominating the EV industry and dominating the battery business and the solar industries and the AI industries and the bot industry, whatever else, that they've shifted their focus away from that long-term vision. And instead they've sat down and they're really focused on, okay, how much money can we build? And instead they're focused into, okay, how much money can we make next year? That is a recipe for disaster for companies that want to achieve long-term innovation and long-term growth. What ends up happening under those situations is that leadership become very complacent about what they have to do in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and instead they focus on really maximizing the profitability of the company now. And the easiest way to do that, the most efficient way to do that, usually is by cutting costs or by removing things that are unprofitable at that time. But if you do that, but the key thing there is that innovation, long-term visions, things that are going to make a difference in 5 or 10 years' time are going to be very unprofitable. But the thing is, if you do that, but the thing there is that things that are going to make a huge impact 5 years, 10 years time from now are all going to be unprofitable today, right now. All those things are going to be worked on, and they're not going to be making a lot of money for the company. Take Tesla as an example from the years 2012 to 2019. The thing that everybody always harped on the company is like, you're not making any money, you're not profitable, you're losing money on every car that you sell. But but what did but what ended up happening after those 8-9 years of growth and insane but what en- but what did end up happening? After those 8-9 years of growth, they ended up but if you look at but if you look back from 2012 to now, what ended up happening is that they set this massive foundation for the company to grow on, and now they're worth nearly $1 trillion. And so it's very important for Tesla and the leadership group there to continue that mantra, to continue that focus. Long-term goals. At the very top of the company, it has to be long-term. Especially at the highest levels of the company, at the CEO level and wherever else in that leadership group. Long-term goals are the things that are going to allow the company to build the foundation necessary to get to the next stages of value for the world, for the employees, and also for the investors. And so that one thing that I'm going to be looking for either this year or next year, once these goals are very likely hit, is to see how long the compensation package is going to be built into the future. Is it going to be a 10-year plan? Is it going to be a 5-year plan? Or is it going to be a 1 to 2 or 3-year plan? The shorter that time window, the more it's going to tell me that the focus of the company has shifted away from long-term focus to shorter-term focus. unless they have some sort of variables or things in that short-term focus that are really going to allow them to focus on those major goals. And obviously, I don't want you to follow my advice. I'm just sharing sort of what. And obviously, I don't want you to follow. And obviously, I want you to do your own research when you're thinking about when you want to sell your shares. I'm just sharing what I think are going to be the. And obviously, I don't want you to take my advice purely on when you should sell your shares. These are the things that are important to me. I am not an investment advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. Only you can do that research for yourself. All I want to do is just share how I'm thinking about the problem in case that might interest you or in case that might spark something in your brain that might lead you to do more research somewhere. Now, if you were to ask me what's actually going to happen, I think what's going to happen. Now, do I think Tesla's going to come out with a short-term package? I really, really don't think so. I think the leadership group there is all very, very future-focused. Elon himself is one of the biggest visionaries and most important visionaries of our lifetime, and he's always thinking 10, 20 years ahead. And so if he's going to continue being the CEO, which I highly, highly and so if he's going to continue being the CEO, which I'm 99.999% sure he's going to be, he's going to want to have an incentive structure that incentivizes him to work the way that he works, which is long-term focus. And so under that scenario, as long as Elon is the CEO of the company, I do not see the structure of compensation packages changing. I think it will continue being long-term. But the more interesting thing is once Elon steps away, whenever that may happen, if the compensation packages are still built to be, but once the day comes, once the day comes where Elon has to step away from Tesla or chooses to step away from Tesla, but once the day comes that Elon chooses to step away from Tesla, I'm sure that he'll find the right leader in place, but that compensation package is going to be so important in defining what the future of the company is going to be. And if it continues being long-term focus, I will not sell my shares. And as long as that focus is 10 years out or multiple years out into the future, and as long as that focus continues to be multiple years out into the future, 10 years into the future for the company and its growth, I will not sell my shares. And as long as that plan goes 10 years into the future and it's very forward-looking, it's extremely unlikely that I'm going to sell my shares. And if the plan, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, I would appreciate it if you. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, I would love it if you throw me a like. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, thank you so much for watching. 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 Come on, what am I supposed to say? Why am I blanking on this? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you throw me a like. If you want to support the channel, I have a link to my Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Jesus. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you throw me a like. If you want to support this channel, I have a Patreon link in the description below. I also have a button where you can. Thank you so much for watching. Oh my God. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you throw me a like. If you want to support this channel, I have a link to my Patreon in the description below, or you can click on the join button right below this video. And lastly, I have a podcast series that's available on this channel and also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast. And lastly, I have a podcast series on this channel, which you can also find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye. That was kind of a struggle.